In this video, I'm going to discuss how to add a vertical stretch or compression into a graph. And what I've done is I have replicated this one piece of the picture I'm drawing here of the transformer logo. And what I want to do is I want to add in a vertical stretch. So let me describe what a vertical stretch should look like visually, and then we can play around with getting it to look the way we want. And actually, I'm just going to throw a sine function in here so that I can demonstrate what it looks like with a sine function. So when we call it a vertical stretch, and you can see we're going to use A, so I created a slider A here for this, because when A gets larger, the graph gets stretched in a vertical direction. So it looks like when I stretch this, right, if it's above the x-axis, it gets pulled up, and if it's below the x-axis, it gets pulled down. And what you see is where it is actually around the x-axis, it's sort of fixed, right? Those points where it crosses the x-axis are fixed. And so that's the behavior that I want to see in my transformation. I want to see something very similar where when I make a larger, I'm going to look at this little segment here, this is going to get pulled up, right? And as I make a smaller, it gets compressed or pushed towards the x-axis. So that's the behavior that I want. Let me hide the sine function. And again, when I'm working with these functions, it's usually easiest to make a copy of it and get rid of the restriction first so that I can make sure the behavior that I want is happening with the function and then add that restriction back in. Now, normally you can see in the sine function here, the a value is normally going to be going outside. So I'm going to outside where the x is. So I'm going to put an a right here and just see if that has the behavior that I want when I make a larger and smaller. And it's a little hard if you've not used to seeing it. So let me put the sine one back in just so that we can have that as a comparison. Okay, we can see that the function is kind of moving. One thing that I want to point out is you can see that where it's intersecting the x-axis is changing. Right, that's moving back and forth. And really what I want is I want that point to be fixed. So the way to change that here is actually to put that a in with the 5.8 in this case. And now if I drag it back and forth, I can see that it's got that behavior that I want. Okay, so it's kind of fixed right there. And then if I put my restriction back in right here, I'm going to see I have the behavior that I want. Now, you might say, oh, well, it looks like this piece here isn't connecting, and that's true, but I need to have this function also using A so that it changes dynamically, because remember, I just kind of arbitrarily cut these off at points where they look like they were good in terms visually. So this function needs to be able to change with A as well. So I'm going to add some of that back in, and then I'll make another video about B.